chance to show the country how they would handle these really difficult challenges. Right?
Obviously, hanging all over this is COVID-19. We have a different scenario here in the debate hall. Many fewer people here in the audience, from about 900 to about roughly 100. You see Chris Wallace getting ready there. He has selected debate topics. He will go for roughly 6 minutes on each one, 15 minutes for each one of those, with back and forth.
So we'll see. Are they going to come out swinging? We have seen President Trump debate a lot. We've now seen Joe Biden debate several times in the primary process here.
Quý vị có nghe Rachel nói không? Nếu quý vị nghe thì quý vị cho cái ngón tay lên nha để Rachel biết. Mình sẽ cố gắng dịch cho quý vị.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Wallace, our colleague and friend.
Chỉ cái phần nào mà được thôi, còn phần nào mà không dịch được thì Rachel báo tay. Nhưng mình sẽ cố gắng. Đây là ông Chris Wallace. Hello, anh Daniel Chung.
Good evening from the Health Education campus of Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The Commission has designed the format.
Quý vị giúp share cái video ra nha để cho những ai mà muốn xem cái debate này live thì họ có thể log in để họ có thể xem được.
Open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the Commission or the two candidates.
Những cái câu hỏi này do ông Chris Wallace đặt ra, và những câu hỏi này hai ứng cử viên chưa có biết trước.
Which is serving as the health security advisor to the Commission for all four debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate.
Hai người sẽ không có shake hand tại vì pandemic.
The hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
How you doing, man?
There you go.
I'm ready.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our
Thưa
first
hai vị, có
subject
rất là
is
nhiều
the
người đã
Supreme
chờ
Court.
cái đêm hôm nay và
President
chúng ta sẽ
Trump,
bắt
you
đầu.
nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the President and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight: why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Tổng thống Donald Trump có 2 phút để trả lời cái câu hỏi về nominate cái người làm thẩm phán.
We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way. In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time. Even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her, and very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is to try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
Tôi đã thắng cuộc bầu cử, tôi là tổng thống thì dĩ nhiên tôi có cái quyền để mà đề cử một người để mà làm thẩm phán.
Thank you for doing this and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is, and that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he has been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I have nothing, I'm not opposed to the justice, she seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February.
All right. There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
during
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years.
The
and the
election's
100
already
million
started.
people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialist. You're going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Bây giờ là tới cái lúc mà gây gì đó.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare. And we increase it. We do not wipe any. One of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said, and it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party wants to go socialist medicine.
My party is
and
me.
socialist
right
healthcare.
Now, I am
and
the
they're going to dominate
party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the Democratic Party is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act? And
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me about this.
I'm happy to talk about this.
And if you were here,
Look,
it wouldn't be 200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You didn't want me to ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which was heavily infected. You would have been much later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr. President.
You're talking about 2 million people.
You're not
President, as a moderator, We are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is it on the ballot? It's not on the ballot.
Đó, Joe bắt
I don't
đầu.
think so.
Joe bắt đầu cà lập mày đó.
There's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you
And you
just
don't
be quiet
know
for a minute?
her view on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't know
don't
her
know.
view.
Well, all right. Let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time, so.
Chúng ta còn rất là nhiều thời gian, ok,
And
cái
then
ông.
we'll come back to Roe v.
Và bây giờ chúng ta
Wade.
sẽ
All
nói về
right.
healthcare.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to
Tổng
give
thống Trump
out
thì
health
muốn
care.
là overcome Obamacare, ông muốn bỏ Obamacare, cho nên là đang hỏi về cái vấn đề Obamacare hiện bây giờ.
You have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan
Yes,
to
I have.
replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well, I'll
I
give
got
you
rid of the individual
when I finish, I'm going to give you an
mandate. Excuse me.
opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That
big
is not a
chunk of
comprehensive plan.
That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst
I
part of
didn't ask
Obamacare.
Sir,
Chris,
you're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obamacare.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the
Tổng thống
most
Donald Trump giữ
important
thiệt.
aspect of
Mr.
Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like you
And we
to,
will protect
Mr.
people with
President, I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer
Go
your
ahead.
question.
Thưa Tổng thống,
You,
cho
in
tôi
the
hỏi
course
cái
of
câu
these 4
hỏi.
years, have never come up with a comprehensive
Trong 4 năm
plan
nay thì ông không
to
có
replace
lên một cái kế hoạch
Obamacare,
gì
and
về cái bảo hiểm
just
sức
this
khỏe
last
để mà
Thursday,
thay thế cho
you
Obamacare.
signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump healthcare plan?
So cái
First
healthcare
of all, I guess
plan
I'm
của
debating
Trump
you,
là
not
gì?
him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something. That there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against big pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care.
What about
All of the
pre-existing
things that
conditions?
we've done,
He has not cut
insulin. I
health
give
care.
you an example. Insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people. The cost. I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water. You want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs that what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because
When in
they
fact-
pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say,
of
this
what
is
we do.
open discussion.
No,
Let
but
me
this
ask
is
you about,
big.
you'll
This
be
is
happy,
big stuff.
sir.
Dưới
You'll be
dưới
happy.
dưới chính quyền
I'm
của
about
tôi
to pick
thì
up on one of your points
cái thuốc,
to
những cái thuốc
ask
thì
the
sẽ
Vice
rất là
President,
rẻ.
which is he points out that you would like to
Mấy ông này
add
nói
a
lẻo quá,
public
sorry,
option
Richard,
to
không có dịch nổi.
Obamacare, and
Yes.
the argument
Và
that
đặc
he
biệt là
makes
Tổng
and
thống
other
Donald Trump
Republicans
cứ là
make
nhảy vô cho nên là
is
khó
that
dịch.
that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
will, if I
sorry.
ask you the question, it will
Not what
end
your party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid
Đó,
would
tới giờ ông vấp rồi
be
đó.
enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie Sanders, who's far
did.
left, on the manifesto,
When
we
you-
call it.
when
And that
manifest-
gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you
I'm
saying
not
you
going to
didn't
listen to
agree?
him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm
Not by
here
much.
standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left
Well,
2
I
days
tell
early.
you,
You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to
on
do
Super
is hurt.
Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to
With
make
what?
sure, because
With what?
here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows
Right.
he's a liar.
But you
I just
agreed.
want to make sure.
Bắt đầu ông Joe nói là Tổng thống
I wanna
Donald
make
Trump là
sure-
liar.
Last in your class,
That's
I'm first in your
Biết trước là cái vụ này sẽ đến.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. he has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you pick
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy, the
Go
wrong
on,
night
Joe.
at the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Now you're disavowing
There
it.
is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left.
Tổng thống Donald Trump không cho cơ hội ông nói, ông tổng thống cứ nhảy vô thôi. Đây là cái chiêu của tổng thống Donald Trump.
idea what this clown's
Socialized, they
doing.
call it
You have any do?
socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well, I
President.
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care. Because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two,
yeah.
there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give
Number
them better
three.
health care at a much lower price because
and by the way, he
Obamacare
doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a plan.
fixed it to an extent.
He has never
Obamacare,
done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't. Obamacare
Gentlemen, you realize
is no
if you're
good,
both
Joe.
speaking at the
It's no
same
good,
time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it
Obamacare
better.
không
And I
có
had a
tốt và
choice
chúng
to
tôi
make
sẽ làm
very
nó tốt
early
hơn.
on. We took away the individual mandate. We
Và
guaranteed
lấy ra những
pre-existing
cái sự điều
conditions, but
khoản
took
mà
away the individual
bắt
mandate.
buộc từng người
Listen,
riêng.
this is the way it is. And that destroyed, they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what he's
and I
known
just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive, premiums are too high, and it doesn't work.
Nó là Obamacare mắc quá, premium thì too cao, quá cao. Cho nên là tôi muốn bỏ cái đó đi và tôi muốn đưa vào những cái điều khác rẻ hơn.
The vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care.
Ông Trump không có plan gì cho healthcare hết, ông Joe nói vậy.
Wishful thinking. He has executive orders
Ông chỉ
that have
đang
no
ước thôi.
power. He hasn't lowered
Ông
drug
ký
costs for
executive order
anybody.
nhưng mà
He's
không
been
có quyền
promising a
hạn gì
healthcare
hết.
plan since he got elected. He has none. Like almost
Ông
everything
không có
else he
cái
talks about.
plan gì
He does
về cái
not have
healthcare,
a
ông chỉ
plan.
nói chuyện thôi. He
doesn't
does not have a plan. Không có
And the
cái
fact is, this
chương
man
trình gì
doesn't
hết, ông
know
chỉ
what
nói
he's
thôi.
talking about.
Mà ông nói mà ông cũng không
I
biết,
have one
ông
final
không
question
nói
for
gì.
you,
Ông Joe nói.
Mr.
Ông
Vice
như vậy.
President, if Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're
to
a
answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
would you answer that
because
question?
the question
You want to put a
is
lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justices,
the
radical
question,
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is your,
up, man?
listen, who is on
You
your
shut
list,
up,
Joe?
man! Oh my
This is
God!
on your list.
Right, gentlemen.
Oh,
I think-
Joe, that you shut up, man! Oh my
Pack the
goodness!
court.
We have,
I'm not going to give a list.
we have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second
Wow.
segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping,
Oh.
man.
The people understand.
Kiếp giác của mình cứ nói nữa đi ông
47
Joe.
years, you've done nothing. They understand.
All right.
Đâu, hai ông này
The
téo quá.
second subject is
Hai ông già
COVID-19,
tối
which
nay
is an awfully
đi về nên
serious subject.
xin lỗi
So
nha, nhưng mà thấy thật téo.
let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus
Chúng ta có
in the United
7
States,
triệu
and more than
cases
200,000
coronavirus, còn
people
trên
have died.
200.000 người đã
Even
bị chết.
after we produce a vaccine, experts say that
Cho
it
dù
could
sau
be
khi
months
mà
or
chúng
even
ta
years
có vaccine ra,
before we come back to
cho dù
anything
có thể là
approaching
nhiều tháng và có thể nhiều
normal.
năm nữa mới
My
bắt đầu trở
question
lại được
for
bình
both
thường.
of you is,
Cái câu hỏi
based on
là
what you have said and done so far and what you have
cái câu
said
hỏi là
you
những gì
would do
mà
starting in
các ông đã nói và
2021,
làm thì năm
why should the American
2021
people trust you more than your opponent
tại sao người dân
public
Mỹ
health crisis going forward?
phải tin
In
tưởng
this
ông
case,
hơn là cái
the
người đối
question
phương
goes
của
to
ông?
you first, sir. 2 minutes
Joe
uninterrupted.
Biden nói chuyện trước.
Good luck.
Good luck.
200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 4% of the world's population. 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do?
Ông Trump ông biết từ hồi tháng 2 là cái bệnh đại dịch này là rất là nguy hiểm, nhưng mà ông đã làm gì? Ông không có nói với người dân. Và ông nói rằng ông làm như vậy để cho người dân không có bị lo. Ông đã làm cái gì cho dân này?
He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job she was doing. He said we owe him a debt
biết trước là ông Joe Biden sẽ lôi
for
cái
being
vấn đề
so
này ra. Ông sẽ dập tổng thống Donald Trump cái vấn đề này. Nói cái lúc đầu không có bắt lỗi ông Xi mà còn khen ông Xi, ông Tập Cận Bình.
And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you,
you have 2 minutes. Sir.
Cái này là ông Trump học thuộc bài, cái câu này là thuộc bài.
The country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened.
Đây là
They
cái
stopped
lỗi
it from
của
going in, but
Trung
it
Quốc.
was China's fault. And by the
Cái
way, when
lỗi
you
của
talk about
China.
numbers, you don't know how many people
Và ngay
died
từ
in
đầu
China.
họ không có nên để
You don't know
làm
how
cái
many
vấn đề
people
này xảy
died in
ra.
Russia. You don't know how many people
Ông
died in
không
India.
có biết là
They
bên
don't
Russia,
exactly give you a
bên
straight
China,
count,
bên
just so you
India hiện
understand.
bây giờ là chết bao
But
nhiêu,
if
người ta
you
không có
look
cho
at what
biết
we've
con số
done,
chính
I
xác thì làm
closed
sao ông
it,
biết
and you
được.
said he's xenophobic,
Ngay từ lúc
he's
đầu
a
là tôi muốn
racist,
đóng
and he's
cửa
xenophobic.
lại thì người ta
Because
nói
you
rằng
told me
là
to close our
tôi là
country.
racist,
Wait a minute.
tôi là sợ
You
hãi.
didn't think we should have closed our country
Ngay từ
because
đầu
you
là
thought
ông
it
là
was
người
too-
nói là
it
không
was
có nên đóng
terrible.
cửa.
You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months.
Ông
By
là
my
người
doing
kêu là
it early,
đừng
in fact, Dr.
đóng
Fauci
cửa
said,
cho thêm 2 tháng nữa.
President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of you Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The
Có
governor
rất là
said
nhiều
I
người
did a
nói Tổng thống
phenomenal
Donald
job.
Trump là
Most of
làm
them
rất
said
là
that.
tốt, tại vì
In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side
tại vì tôi làm những
said
cái
that.
điều mà tôi cần thiết phải
President
làm.
Trump did a phenomenal job. We did.
Tổng thống Trump
We
làm
got
rất là
the
tốt
gowns,
và
we got
tôi
the
đã làm
masks,
rất là
we
tốt.
made the ventilators. You wouldn't
Chúng
have
ta
made ventilators, and
chúng
now
tôi
we're weeks
làm
away
thêm
from a
mask, làm
vaccine.
thêm
We're doing
máy
therapeutics already.
máy
Fewer
trợ
people
thở.
are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people
Làm
are
cho
dying. We've done a
ít người
great
bị
job.
chết hơn
The
khi mà
only
họ bị
thing I
bệnh, và
haven't
chúng
done
tôi
a
làm
good
rất
job,
là
and
tốt.
that's because of the fake news. No matter
Và
what
tại
you
sao
say
tôi
to
làm
them,
không
they give you
tốt là
bad
tại vì
press on
fake
it. It's just
news.
fake news. They give you good press. They give me
Những
bad
người fake
press,
news là đưa
because
những
that's
cái
the
gì
way it
tốt
is,
cho ông nhưng mà
unfortunately.
làm
But let
xấu
me
cho
just tell you
tôi.
something. I don't
Đó
care.
là
I've
những
gotten used to
cái
it.
truyền
But
thông
I'll tell you,
fake
Joe,
news,
you
cho mấy
could
ok,
never have
tôi
done the
quen
job
với cái
that
điều
we
đó
did.
rồi.
You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
Nếu mà là ông sẽ không có làm được như tôi đâu. Tại vì cái đó là trong máu của ông sẽ không có làm được như vậy.
H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own
H1N1 là cái lúc mà bị bệnh so, sao ông làm rất là tệ.
There was no economic recession.
You made a point. Let him answer.
And there was no
Cái con số của H1 là ông
shut
làm rất là
down the
tốt.
This is his economy he shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far
How
more
many
people. Far more people.
And,
you would have been
and by the way,
months late.
your own,
You were months behind me,
his
Joe.
own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine,
Ông Trump ông chỉ nói là chỉ cần đeo mask thôi là có thể save được khoảng một nửa số người bị chết. Trump ông nói vậy.
Okay, gentlemen, let me move on to questions
Tổng thống
about the
Trump
future,
nói
because
nếu
you
mà
both
tôi
have touched
không
on
có
one
làm
of
những
the-
cái gì mà tôi
two of
làm,
the
có thể là con
questions
số
I'm
chết
gonna
nó sẽ còn
ask.
cao hơn như vậy.
Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies and we can
Cái
have it a
vấn đề
lot
của
sooner. It's a
CDC
very
nói là
political
cái
thing because people like this
vaccine sẽ
would
ra
rather make it
vào
political
giữa
than save lives.
giữa
It is
mùa
a very
hè
political
2021,
thing.
còn
I've
Tổng thống
spoken
Donald
to
Trump nói thì họ
Pfizer,
là
I've
bị
spoken to
lẫn
all
lộn.
of
Thì
the
bây
people
giờ
that you
ông
have
nói
to
như thế
speak to.
nào?
We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call
So
them
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what I
that
call
the
them.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available, just
He
like
said
Dr.
it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be
Possibility là có thể,
Well, we're
có
gonna
khả năng
deliver
là
right
sẽ
away. We
có
have the
thể
military
là
all set up
ra trước
logistically.
tháng
They're all set
12.
up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This is
delivering
the same man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm and that would take care of it. This is the
Giờ ông
same
Joe,
man.
ông lôi cái vấn đề mà nói là
So
chích
here's
cái
the deal. This man is talking about a
chất
vaccine.
tẩy vào người là có thể
Every serious
giảm được
company is
COVID.
talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year, but the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up
You'll have
on
the
that.
vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure.
Cái câu hỏi là ông Joe với lại bà Harris có phải là hai người là làm cho cái dịch này làm cho người dân sợ hơn về cái vấn đề COVID này hay không?
Will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do, but there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him.
Are you contributing to vaccine fears?
And by the way,
cái câu hỏi là ông làm cho người dân sợ thêm về cái vấn đề là vaccine, có đúng không?
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it.
Ông lôi cái vấn đề là từ hồi tháng 2 là Tổng thống Donald Trump không có nói là cái COVID này sẽ bị giết người.
Unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me.
Ông đừng có bao giờ dùng cái từ mà khôn hay là thông minh với tôi, là tại vì khi mà ông ra trường ông là đứng ở dưới cái hàng dưới ở trong cái lớp của ông đừng bao giờ dùng cái từ smart với tôi. Để tôi nói cho ông biết, hả Joe. Nếu mà ông là người charge, đứng charge giống như tôi, để mà tôi nói là phải đóng cửa cái economy.
Okay. When it comes to how the virus has been
Ông kia
handled so
cắt lời để mà
far,
đổi đi tay.
the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings.
Những cái câu hỏi là nếu mà hai ông mà trở thành tổng thống thì sẽ làm cái gì về cái vấn đề COVID này, là mở cửa trở lại về trường học cũng như là kinh tế. Ông Trump này không có cái plan gì hết. Mình phải cho thêm tiền cho những cơ sở thương mại để có thể mở ra. Đi hỏi bà Nancy Pelosi đi. Nói cái điều đó với bà Nancy Pelosi đi.
They have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with him in the Senate. And he sits in his golf course. And, I mean, literally.
Thế ông Trump đâu có ngồi xuống để mà nói chuyện đâu, ông chỉ là đi đánh golf thôi.
Well, he wants to shut down this country.
Ông Joe, ông muốn shut down cái kinh tế này. Nhưng mà tôi muốn mở cửa. Ông Joe, ông chờ tôi phải shut ông down ngay lúc giờ, phải để cho tôi nói hết. Ông muốn tôi phải là đóng cửa kinh tế này.
That elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot.
Chúng tôi học được rất là nhiều là những người già, những người lớn tuổi thì mới dễ bị nhiễm, nhưng mà tuổi trẻ thì là không có bị, như tuổi con nít thì nó sẽ ít bị hơn. Nhưng mà bên đảng Dân Chủ thì họ muốn là đóng cửa cái kinh tế này và họ muốn giữ đóng cửa như vậy, họ không có cho mở ra cho khi sau khi mà election. Cuộc tranh luận này dữ dội
to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning the efficacy of masks?
You have to understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here.
Tôi có cái mask ở đây nè, tôi có thể đeo mask lúc nào mà tôi cảm thấy cần là tôi đeo mask. Nhưng mà như ví dụ như đêm nay là mình có cách nhau là 6 feet và test độ trước khi mà vô đây thì mình không có cần phải đeo mask. Không phải là lúc nào cần phải đeo mask, giống như cái ông này lúc nào mà gặp ổng không đeo mask. Lúc nào nói chuyện với người ta cách 200 feet mà ổng cũng phải đeo mask nữa. Tôi có mask nhưng mà tôi chỉ đeo lúc mà tôi cần thôi.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money. The Congress.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Ông này lạc đề nè, đang hỏi về mask, ông nói cái đề tài khác và bị chỉnh lại.
Between now, if everybody wore a mask in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also said the opposite. They've also said
no serious person said the opposite.
No serious. Dr. Fauci said the opposite.
He did not say the opposite.
We got a little bit more than a minute left in this segment.
Masks are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks good.
Ngay từ đầu là ông Dr. Fauci nói là mask là không có good, được sau đó rồi ông mới thay đổi ý kiến là mask good, thì tôi làm theo giống như vậy thôi. Và cái câu hỏi là tôi thấy có những cái buổi vận động của Tổng thống Donald Trump rất là lớn, nhưng mà có một số người không có đeo mask. Còn nói rồi, còn ông Joe Biden có vận động nhưng mà cái vận động nhỏ hơn. Người Tổng thống bay vô nói là tại vì không có ai đến hết. Tại vì khi mà tôi vận động là người ta đến đông, là tại vì người ta muốn nghe được tôi nói cái gì. Còn ông Joe này nói chuyện thì không ai muốn nghe.
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside, that's a big difference according to the.
Thì hiện bây giờ chúng ta không có bị vấn đề gì. Mỗi lần tôi vận động là bên ngoài, rất là đông, nhưng mà bên ngoài.
And literally on 24 hours notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Và ông Joe Biden cũng làm như vậy, nhưng mà chỉ có 3 người đến thôi.
And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, "No, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people." That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative effect.
No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect, and we've had 40,000 people at these rallies.
Just quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encourage them not to.
Quý vị giúp Rachel share cái video ra nha, tại vì nhiều khi có những ai mà muốn xem thì họ có thể vào, họ xem được cái live này nha quý vị nha. Và bây giờ chúng ta đang nói về cái nền kinh tế. Kinh tế đang bị ảnh hưởng vì bị đóng cửa. Unemployment xuống tới 8.4%.
To growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery.
Tổng thống Donald Trump, ông nói rằng chúng ta đang ở trong cái hình mà grow á là V-shape, là nó xuống kìa và giờ đang lên.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague.
Chúng tôi đóng xuống tại vì cái bệnh của China, khi mà China đến thì chúng ta phải đóng cửa xuống. Và ông nói là chúng ta không có nên phải đóng cửa lại và ông bị sai. Nếu mà để ông làm là có 2 triệu người đã chết chứ không phải là 200.000 chết. Ngay từ đầu là bên China không có nên có những cái vụ này. Nhưng mà chúng ta đóng cửa lại và bây giờ chúng ta mở cửa lại. Chúng ta có 10.4 million, mình đã cho người ta có công việc trở lại. Và từ xưa nay chưa có ai làm được như vậy. Và bên ông Joe Biden là ông muốn đóng cửa lại, ông muốn hủy hoại cái đất nước này. Ông muốn giúp cho những cái drug, alcohol, depression. Hãy nhìn những cái tiểu bang mà bên đảng Dân Chủ của ông đã làm là họ đã làm cái gì? Họ không có muốn mở lại. Họ chỉ muốn mở lại là sau khi November. Mà tại sao lại November? Là tại vì sau khi cái cuộc bầu cử. Tại vì bên những cái tiểu bang này họ muốn làm ảnh hưởng đến nền kinh tế, ảnh hưởng đến tôi.
North Carolina, when you look at these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others.
Những cái tiểu bang khác, mình phải mở cửa cái tiểu bang này thật là công bằng, giống như là nhốt người ta trong tù vậy. Chuyện gì xảy ra với lại ly dị, với lại là uống rượu, với drugs. Cái ông nội này là ông sẽ đóng cửa là nguyên cái đất nước này. Và hiện bây giờ đất nước của chúng ta đang mở cửa và đang phục hồi lại từ từ. Và ông này nhảy vô nói là kêu shut it down, đóng cửa lại.
As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Another billionaires have
lâu lâu thì tôi sẽ bỏ những cái comment của quý vị lên đây để chúng ta cùng tìm hiểu nhé.
Profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750
biết trước là chuyện này sẽ xảy ra luôn. Là ông lôi về cái vấn đề là tổng thống Donald Trump trả thuế gần cách đây 2 ngày thì báo đưa ra là tổng thống Donald Trump không có trả thuế, chỉ trả thuế là có 750 thôi. Thì cái đó là chỉ tổng thống nói là đó là fake news, nhưng mà đêm nay là ông sẽ lôi ra cái vấn đề này để ông nói.
Then when he became president, fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he
Tại
take
sao ông
care of
muốn
the
mở
America?
cửa lại cái nền kinh tế này? Ông không có thể sửa được kinh tế này cho khi mà chúng ta sửa được cái vấn đề của COVID. Quý vị nên ở nhà. Tại sao trường đi mở cửa lại? Tốn rất là nhiều tiền để mà mở trường lại. That's a lie, Sal.
They've done nothing to help small businesses.
Nói là chính quyền của Trump mới đầu là nói cho mask cho trường, nhưng mà cuối cùng là thay đổi ý kiến là không có cho mask trường luôn, không có cho tiền ở trường luôn.
So we can open safely.
All right, your time is up, sir. We are going to get to the.
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down.
Người ta muốn là trường mở cửa lại, người ta không có muốn trường bị đóng cửa, không có muốn thành phố bị đóng cửa. Nhìn New York, trên New York nhìn giống như cái thành phố ma vậy, tại vì bị đóng cửa. Người ta muốn là cái nơi của người ta mở cửa, người ta muốn trường mở cửa.
I'm the one that brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And
All right,
people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know how I found out? When he took a
Gentlemen,
phony
we're going to
ad.
get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr.
Em xin cố
President,
gắng.
as you well know, there's a
Thấy gì
new
chứ khó lắm
report
mà tại bà ông
that
nhảy ra
in
nhảy vô nên khó dịch
2016,
lắm,
the year you
nhưng mà
were
em cố
elected
gắng thôi.
president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax.
Giờ
each of
vấn đề
those
là hỏi
years.
là Tổng thống Donald Trump
I
là
know that you pay
là
a
có
lot of
giấy
other
có
taxes,
gần
but
đây
I'm
đưa ra
asking
thông
you
tin
the
là ông
specific
chỉ có
question.
trả
Is it
thuế
true
là
that you pay
$750
$750
một năm,
in
có đúng hay
federal
không?
income taxes
Tiền
each of those 2 years?
federal
I paid
trong 2
millions
năm.
of dollars
No,
in
no, no,
taxes,
tôi trả
millions of dollars
cả triệu
in
đồng
income tax.
tiền thuế rồi.
And let me just tell you,
Và để
there
tôi
was a
nói cho
story
ông
in
biết,
one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid $38 million
tôi trả
one year.
38
I
triệu
paid
cho một năm,
27 million.
Show
tôi
us
trả
your tax
27
return.
triệu một
I
năm.
went. You'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know,
Ok,
I wanna
tôi sẽ
do-
cho ông
go
thấy
to
sau
the
khi mà
Board
cái
of
này
Elections.
xong.
There's
Vô
a
trong Board
118
Election để
page
mà
or so
nhìn có
report
128
that says
trang
everything I
report,
have,
trong đó có
every bank I
tất
have,
cả
I'm totally
những cái
under-leveraged
bank
because the assets are
đều
extremely
có
good.
những cái giấy tờ đó.
And we have a very, I built
Sir,
a
I'm
great
asking you a
company.
specific question, which
But
is...
let me tell you-
I understand all of that.
Release your
I
tax
understand all of that.
return. But let me-
No, Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes
Ông có thể
in
trả cho chúng tôi được
2016
năm
and
2016 và
Millions of dollars.
2017, ông đã trả bao nhiêu tiền thuế?
Millions of dollars.
Không
And
phải là
you get to-
750
and
đúng
you get
không?
to see
Thì
it.
Tổng thống nói
But
là
let me
tôi
just
trả
tell
cả
you-
triệu
Chris, let
đồng.
me just tell you something that
Is it
it was
true?
the tax
Cái
laws.
câu hỏi là
I don't
có
have to
đúng
pay
không
tax.
là ông đã
Before I
trả
came here,
750
I
đồng
was a
tiền
private
federal income
developer.
tax
I
thì
was a
Tổng thống
private
nói
business
Trump nói
people.
no.
Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for
Cái ông Joe này là
tax
người
credits.
đã
We built the
đưa
building
ra
where we get tax credits like the hotel
luật
on
của
Pennsylvania
về
Avenue, you get
thuế
tax,
khi mà
which, by
mình
the way,
làm
was given
business
to
mình
me
khai
by
loss
the
là mình
Obama
có
administration,
thể
if
là
you can
mình
believe
khai
that.
thuế
Now the man
thấp
got
được.
fired
No,
right after that happened, but
Vice
that's
President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code.
Tại sao ông Joe Biden nói
made
chuyện mà nhắm
him-
mắt vậy ta?
Put him in a position that he
Nói chuyện
pays
nhắm
less
mắt con ra
tax
kìa,
than
mấy
a
tí.
school teacher on the money a school teacher makes is because of
Ông
him
Trump này
taking-
trả
he says
tiền
he's
thuế
smart
còn ít
enough, he can
hơn
take
là
advantage of the tax code.
thầy
And
cô
he does
giáo
take advantage of the
trả
tax
tiền
code.
thuế
That's
nữa,
why
tại vì ông
I'm
nghĩ
gonna
rằng là ông
eliminate the
khôn
Trump
và ông có
tax
thể
cuts.
là ăn
And
gian
we're
được cái tiền
gonna
thuế.
eliminate those tax
Okay.
cuts.
Cho nên là tôi
And
sẽ
make
bỏ
sure
những
that
cái
we
phần
invest
thuế
in the
đó
people who in
và
fact
chúng ta sẽ
need the
bỏ
help.
tiền
People
đó
out
vào cho
there
những ai
need
mà
help.
đang
But why
cần.
didn't you do it over 20 the last
Vậy
20
tại sao
Because
25 năm về trước ông không có làm? Tại sao 25 năm về trước
things
vậy
up.
chứ ông không có
You
làm?
were a senator, and
You're
by
the
the way,
worst
you were a
president
vice.
America has ever had.
Ông là thượng nghị sĩ trong
Let
thời
me
gian
just
qua,
say,
tại sao không
Joe,
làm cái
I've
điều
done
đó?
more in
Tôi nói
in
cho ông biết Joe,
47 months. I've
tôi
done
làm
more
trong
than you've done in
47
47
tháng còn
years,
hơn
Jim.
là ông
We've
làm
done things that you
47
never
năm.
even thought of doing.
Tôi
including
làm còn
fixing the
nhiều
broken
hơn là những cái
military
điều
that you
mà
gave
ông
me,
đã làm.
including taking care of
We're
your
talking,
vets.
Mr. President, we're
Nói
talking
luôn
about
cái
the
vấn đề
economy.
là
I'd like to
chỉnh
ask
lại
you
cái số
about
tiền
your plans going
broken
forward.
military, ông
Because,
để lại cho
Mr.
tôi
Vice
phải sửa
President,
cái điều
your
đó.
economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes,
Thuốc
big
nên nhắm
spending.
mắt.
I want to focus first
Khánh
on the
Lê như funny.
taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what the analysis done by Wall Street firms points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make the federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
Well, by the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that That was
Right.
your tax proposal.
I got it done, and you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed
And,
like it's never boomed.
The economy is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for the American people.
But let me.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery since economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks.
Khi stock market đi lên có nghĩa là job đi lên và 401k đi lên. Khi mà ông mà trở thành tổng thống, ông bỏ đi cái vấn đề thuế của tôi thì half of những cái công ty họ sẽ bỏ Mỹ và họ sẽ đi ra những cái nước khác.
Look, we inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't booming.
Trong cái thời gian của tôi là khi mà tôi giao quyền lại cho bên ông Trump là cái thời gian đó rất là tốt, và trong 4 năm nay thì tổng thống Trump ông đã làm phá hủy đi cái điều đó. Nhưng mà cái vấn đề này là vấn đề của Covid mà. Trước khi cái vấn đề của Covid là những cái công ty bắt đầu nó đi xuống. Tổng thống Trump ông tức cũng vậy.
A miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
Tôi mang về là hơn 7 triệu job và tôi mang về những cái công ty về nước Mỹ. Còn bên cái ông này là không có. Còn ông này thì dành là tôi đã là người là mang những cái công ty về lại, nhưng mà tổng thống Donald Trump là làm phá đi nè. Michigan có một cái năm là tốt nhất trong từ đó tới bây giờ. Có rất là nhiều những cái công ty là bắt đầu về Michigan, về những cái tiểu bang.
He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit with Mexico.
China ate your lunch, down 800%. China ate your lunch, Joe, and no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do?
Tại sao mà cái guy ở Moscow lại cho con ông là 3,5 triệu? Con ông đã làm cái gì để mới xứng đáng được cái số tiền đó?
Mr. President, please.
Ok, cái vấn đề này không có chính xác, ông Joe nói vậy. Ông Joe nói là cái điều này không có đúng. 3.5 million, 3,5 triệu. 3,5 triệu con trai ông được.
It's an open discussion, please.
It's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr. President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
Con trai tôi không có làm một cái điều gì sai hết.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who?
And
the media?
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our allies, by the World Bank, by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even the people who testified under oath.
So let me ask you this.
No, go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to you.
You got $3.5 million from Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh, really?
I did it
I'd
honorably.
like to know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of the people who testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't do a good job. With you,
go ahead. Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me.
Hey, let me just
kêu tổng thống Donald Trump là ông hề. Nói chuyện với ông này thật là khó.
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's already...
Gia đình của ông Trump chúng ta có thể nói luôn cả đêm.
And that's such a great... This is not about my family or his family. It's about your family, the American people. He doesn't... That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about.
All right, that's the end of the segment. We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Vice President, no.
Can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be honest.
Đây là cái vấn đề rất là quan trọng là tôi cũng muốn
The
nói.
answer to the question is no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
that is absolutely not true.
You're going to have
true.
Gentlemen. I hate to raise my voice, but it seems to be, why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal.
Good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment.
Và chúng ta có 6 phần và phần này đã xong rồi và chúng ta phải move on tới cái section khác.
In those 2 interrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting than he has.
That's all right, but he does plenty.
Thì Tổng thống Trump nhảy vô nói thì bị ông này chỉnh lại là không có được làm gì.
Please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years
Bây giờ nói về cái vấn
when
đề
he
là
talked
bạo
about
động.
very fine people on both sides was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Thấy ông Joe Biden ông ngồi đứng đọc nốt.
Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden,
cái câu hỏi là tại sao mà người dân Mỹ có thể là tin tưởng ông hơn là cái người bên kia về cái vấn đề là racial issues.
Equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed, and they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president's ever said anything like that.
It is who's
now,
who
second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African-American community.
So, President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with racism?
You did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that. because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Bên cái đảng này là dạy người ta là hate cái đất nước này.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important that people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was
trong cái thời gian của
tremendous
Obama và ông Joe Biden, trong thời gian đó có rất là nhiều cái sự ghét nhau, hatred.
Many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland.
Nhìn ở Oakland có rất là nhiều chỗ, Baltimore, nhìn cái chuyện gì. Có những cái tiểu bang đó có nhiều violent, bạo động hơn những cái chỗ khác.
Don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
Violent
Are you in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law.
Are you in for?
Are you in favor?
Are you in favor? Ông ủng hộ cái vấn đề luật pháp và sự yên tĩnh hơn.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact
Tổng
of the
thống Trump
matter is,
lúc nào cũng
violent
nói
crime
law
went
and
down
order.
15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more than ours.
All right, we're now. Mr. President, you're going to Mr. President,
every record in the book.
Mr. President, you're going to be very happy because we're now going to talk about law and order.
Bây giờ sẽ nói về cái vấn đề law and order.
That's exactly my question. There has been a dramatic increase
Những
in
đảng Dân Chủ,
homicides in
những cái tiểu bang của
America
đảng Dân Chủ
this
thì có
summer,
rất là nhiều
particularly,
violence.
and you often
Có rất
blame
là
that
nhiều
on
bạo động.
Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where
Ông hãy thử nhìn bên Chicago có chuyện gì đang xảy ra. Có 53 người đã bị bắn, 8 người bị chết vì bị bắn. Ở New York, cái con số violence lên rất là cao.
It is crazy what's going on.
Và cái
And
con
he
số
doesn't want to
rất
say law
là
and order because he
crazy.
can't.
Tại
Because
vì
he
ông
loses
không
radical
có
left
thể nói về
supporters.
cái vấn đề
And
law
once he
and
does
order,
that,
tại vì
it's
ông
over.
không có thể
But
nói được,
if
tại vì
he
khi mà
ever
ông
got
nói,
to
ông
run
sẽ
this
bị
country,
mất đi sự ủng
and they
hộ
ran it the
của
way he would
bên
want to run
cánh
it,
tả.
we would have our suburbs would be
Nếu như mà mình làm việc theo cái kiểu của ông Joe Biden thì sẽ gặp những cái vấn đề, sẽ gặp nhiều vấn đề bạo động.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles on racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means.
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter?
Ông có ủng hộ cái vấn đề của Black Lives Matter không, ông Joe?
For community control of policing.
Dạ, cái vấn đề là cái cộng đồng control những người
police. To deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding in his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what he's talking about, defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law.
Nên những cái điều của ông Joe nói không có chính xác. Bên của đảng Dân Chủ là cái bên mà đòi là cắt tiền của cảnh sát.
We don't have time to do anything. Name one law enforcement group that came out and supported.
Giờ ông chỉ cần nói cho tôi một cái tên thôi của cái nhóm của cảnh sát nào mà đi ra để mà ủng hộ ông nói cho tôi biết đi, nói đi, chúng ta có nhiều thời gian nữa.
Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President,
có rất là nhiều những cái cuộc biểu tình đã trở thành bạo động. Và cái câu hỏi là
earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now. Have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this? Bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and
cái câu hỏi là ông đại diện cho Đảng Dân Chủ, vì có bao giờ ông gọi những người thống đốc hay là những người mayor của những cái tiểu bang mà tiểu bang thuộc về Đảng Dân Chủ và gọi họ để nói họ là các ngươi phải ngưng những cái vấn đề này không?
But you've never called for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You had never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Những cái người thống đốc của tiểu bang đó họ có thể tự lo nếu như mà ông Trump không có nhảy vô, ông không có cần phải làm nữa gì. Thiệt hả? Nếu mà tôi không có vào cuộc là những cái người đó còn bắn luôn những người cảnh sát nữa.
And by the way, you know, his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Và ông Joe nói rằng có một số người ở bên tổng thống Trump nói rằng là cái cuộc bạo động như vậy còn giúp cho cái chiến dịch của tổng thống Donald Trump nữa. Tổng thống nói ai nói vậy? Nghĩa là không chính xác.
Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, every single solitary.
Ông nói rằng tổng thống Donald Trump không có kêu người ta ngồi xuống để mà nói chuyện về cái vấn đề là Black Lives Matter, nhưng mà chỉ là đổ dầu vào lửa thôi.
You've been talking back and forth. I'm asking you. You know, if you want to switch seats.
We would very quickly.
We can do that, but I'm
send in the National Guard. It would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay,
but they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the Vice President for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups.
Đang nói về Antifa.
But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not
tối nay, đêm nay thì Tổng thống Donald Trump có dám nói rằng là kêu gọi những cái người quân dân là những người quân dân bạo động để calm down, không có violence như vậy. Tôi muốn thấy sự peace, sự an toàn.
What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
white supremacists and white supremacists and right-wing militia.
Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing. This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got it.
Not militia. That's what his FBI his FBI director said.
Tại vì ở bên đảng Dân Chủ thì có cái nhóm là Black Lives Matter, nhưng mà hiện bây giờ thì bên của Tổng thống Donald Trump thì có một cái nhóm khác nó gọi là White Voice. Hoặc là cái nhóm quân dân thì họ đang chống lại cái nhóm của Black Lives Matter.
When a president, I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent in this segment?
Nhìn vào cái lịch sử của hai ông thì ông cho biết là tại sao mà người dân Mỹ nên chọn ông thay vì chọn cái người khác. Không có cái tổng thống nào mà làm nhiều như tôi làm trong vòng 3 năm rưỡi nay như là tôi đã làm. Nếu mà nhìn những cái vấn đề của ông Joe và cái nhiệm kỳ trước là những cái để lại những cái không có tốt mà tôi phải xây sửa. Trước khi mà cái trận đại dịch này đến thì cái số người bị thất nghiệp là rất là thấp và cái nền kinh tế rất là cao.
And they were saying, it's time maybe, and then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military,
trước đó là kinh tế rất là tốt luôn. Khi mà đại dịch tới thì chúng ta bị vấn nạn, nhưng mà bây giờ chúng ta đang chuẩn bị leo lên lại.
308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges, it's a record.
Tổng thống Trump nói rằng sau cái thời gian của Obama cũng như là ông Joe Biden, họ để lại là 128 cái ghế trống của những người thẩm phán, và ông Tổng thống Trump nói rằng là tôi cảm ơn vì ông đã làm cái điều đó, tại vì ông làm như vậy tôi mới có thể cơ hội để những người thẩm phán vào những cái ghế trống đó. Ông Joe nói rằng chính quyền của tụi tôi ngày xưa để lại cho ông Trump cái nền kinh tế rất là tốt, nhưng mà tới cái thời của ông Trump làm cho này đi xuống. Và ông nói rằng là Tổng thống Donald Trump là như sợ ông Putin, không có dám nói gì tới ông Putin.
Both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add back?
No, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you add back 30 seconds?
Yeah, yes, you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser.
Oh no. Oh no, oh no.
He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Beau Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Beau. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He wasn't dishonorably.
Cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you became vice president, he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow, and various other
Trong cái lúc ông làm vice president thì con trai của ông đã hưởng lợi rất là nhiều từ bên Ukraine cũng như là bên Germany.
He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he given tens of millions of dollars?
But he wasn't given tens of millions.
Đấy, con trai của tôi đã từng uống trước nhưng mà bây giờ thì ông sửa rồi, bây giờ xin tốt và tôi hãnh diện về con trai của tôi.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial subjects. Well, you know,
ông Chris Wallace nói trong cái thời gian này thì tôi nghĩ rằng là người dân Mỹ muốn nghe về cái vấn đề của họ chứ không có muốn nghe về vấn đề con của mấy ông này.
Mitt Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money. That report was written for political reasons.
You know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres.
Chị có phải
They
chờ phát
have
live debate này với nhớ share giùm mấy chờ nha, có vị nhớ share giùm mấy chờ, có những ai mà muốn xem thì họ không có biết ở đâu coi đó thì có thể vào đây xem được.
President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint, and people are
Nhưng quý vị nhìn ở Paris, nhìn ở Pháp, cái chuyện gì xảy ra giống như là rất là bad luôn. Còn bên Mỹ của mình bây giờ thì bây giờ của bên Mỹ mình đỡ cũng so nhiều như bên kia.
And leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management. You've got to have cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very exciting for a lot of people.
You believe that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of this planet?
I think a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier
nói về cái
than
vấn đề của
California.
cháy
There
rừng ở
shouldn't be
Cali.
that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground.
Mỗi năm chúng ta không thể nào mà có những cái khu rừng để mà bị cháy như vậy là cả ngàn
clean power plant
cả chục ngàn những cái acre rừng nó bị cháy như vậy.
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars and trucks?
Well, not really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference, and then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there.
Quý vị thấy ông Joe Biden đang đọc bài không?
If you did that, the car would be safer. It
Ông
would
đứng
be
ông đọc
much
bài,
cheaper
ông có
by
soạn bài và nhìn xuống hỏi.
California, they've simply
No, but you would
ignored
take a lot
your
of cars
rollback.
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, so, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out.
Nào, ông
But a
nhìn
lot of
xuống nữa
people
đó, ông
agree
nhìn
with me,
xuống
many
bài tiếp.
people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And I'm okay with electric cars too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050.
Ông Joe Biden ông có đưa ra cái vấn đề là ngưng khai phá dầu thô và dầu hỏa, và cũng như là ông cấm là buôn bán xe chạy bằng xăng đến năm 2035 ở Cali. Thì cái vấn đề đó như thế nào?
To cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations in all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability of us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that in fact is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin
Theo cái điều của tôi nói là đến năm 2035 thì chúng ta sẽ chuyển mọi thứ thành xanh, không có chạy bằng dầu thô, dầu hỏa, không có bằng xăng, và cái điều này sẽ giúp được job sẽ cao hơn, và job không phải là 10-15 đồng một giờ và cao hơn như vậy.
Carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and
khi mà
making
xe
sure
lái
we had
bằng
the
xăng, bằng
countries of
dầu
the
rồi
world
thì
coming up with
carbon
$20 billion. Say, here's $20 billion.
Ra từ xe hút vào những cái rừng, như vậy làm bị cháy
rừng. And if you
rừng.
don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Vậy giờ ông nói gì về cái điều mà Tổng thống Donald Trump nói rằng là mình vừa phải chuyển nó thành xanh, nhưng mà đồng thời mình phải nhìn vào cái nền kinh tế nữa.
Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that the fact is,
thấy chưa, ông nói chuyện, ông nhìn bài xuống nè, quý vị thấy ông đã đang nhìn bài xuống nè. Tranh luận mà tại sao nhìn bài xuống? Tổng thống chưa bao giờ nhìn xuống để mà nhìn bài của ông, là nhìn bài liên tục.
It's the dumbest, most ridiculous, where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. You know, that's not true either, right? This is a 100 trillion. That's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we're going to
the case.
All right, let me because I actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good paying jobs.
But let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good paying jobs, and
Cái
these
plan
tax
của tôi
incentives
sẽ
to
giúp
people,
được
for
cả
people to
triệu công
weatherize,
việc
which he
làm.
wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that at all.
He did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up.
We are going to be in a position where we can create.
Tổng thống Trump nói là ông Joe cũng bịa ra nhiều chuyện để nói.
By making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now. Billions of dollars on floods, hurricanes,
chúng ta đã bỏ ra cả tỷ tiền về cái vấn đề là bị flood, bị hurricane, nhưng mà vẫn bị thiên tai. Thử nhìn đi cái chuyện hiện bây giờ đang xảy ra.
Warming. We make up 15%
về cái vấn đề bão, thiên tai ngày xưa không có nhưng mà bây giờ có là tại vì global warming.
That's why we have to get back into.
Cho nên chúng ta cần phải có sự thay đổi.
Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years?
Giờ cho tôi hỏi là tại sao trong 47 năm ông Joe không có làm cái điều này mà bây giờ chỉ nói cái điều này? Rồi mấy chục năm nay China làm như vậy, bên India làm như vậy, tại sao nước Mỹ không làm vậy dưới cái thời của ông 47 năm nay ông làm sao không có làm cái điều đó? Đúng là ông Joe chỉ nói không mà 47 năm không làm.
He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
Những cái điều của ông Joe nói là cái điều ông với lại bạn của ông bịa lên nói, tôi chưa bao giờ nói những cái điều.
I would never say that.
Play it.
Go ahead, Mr. Vice President. Answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental changes will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
But do you support the Green New Deal?
Ông nói là cái Green New Deal là sẽ nó có thể tự trả tiền cho nó. Không hiểu em nói là gì.
I support the Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment. Election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early.
Đang nói về cái vụ mà
should we be that this will be a fair election, and what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to election day but also counting
cái vụ
some ballots,
bầu cử bằng
ballots
thư
after
thì
election day.
quý vị nghĩ là nó có an toàn hay không, và trong 5 tuần nữa thì quý vị làm cái điều gì để mà có thể bảo đảm được là cái điều mà mình vô bên bằng thư có thể là an toàn được.
They should go to iwillvote.com. Decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you.
Những ai mà chưa có đăng ký đi bầu nhớ đi ra đi bầu nha.
From being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter. Because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over.
Xin lỗi, I'm not a translator, mình không phải là thông dịch viên.
It won't happen.
Mình chỉ cố gắng dịch được bao nhiêu mình dịch thôi. Cái người thiệu hoàng vô duyên.
You have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change? Or you get 4 more years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, There was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General
Không phải là
Flynn.
bây giờ nữa
You
mà
better take
từ
a
cái
look at
thời
that, because
của
we caught you in
bà
a sense. And
Hillary Clinton
President
là
Obama
họ
was sitting in
đã
the office. He knew
theo
about it
dõi
too, so
những
don't
cái
tell me
phiếu bầu
about a
của
free
tôi rồi.
transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster.
Và cái balance concern là một cái điều rất là tệ.
Okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back.
Soliciting mình kêu gọi thì ok. Nhưng mà những cái mà không có kêu gọi nhưng mà cũng gửi ra. Họ đã gửi ra cho tất cả mọi người mà có nhiều khi gửi những cái fraud mà gửi cho mọi nơi. Rồi có nhiều nhà là có những 2-3 cái tờ giấy để mà bầu như vậy và gửi ra khắp nơi hết.
And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know
và
what?
những cái điều này có thể là
We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other
New York,
places.
New Jersey,
They're not losing
Virginia.
2%, 1%, which by the
Họ
way
không
is too
phải là
much.
thua là 2-3%.
They're losing 30 and 40%.
Mà họ thua là
It's a fraud
30-40%.
and it's a shame. And can
Vậy
you
đây là
imagine where they say
fraud,
you
cái
have
sự
to have
gian
your
lận
ballot
và
in by
cái điều này
November
rất là
10th.
xấu hổ.
November 10th. That
November
means
10th.
that's 7 days after the election.
Và kêu họ gửi vào những cái phiếu bầu này sau, gửi những cái phiếu bầu này vào 10 tây tháng 11 là những cái thời gian này là sau khi mà đã bầu rồi thì tại sao lại kêu gửi vào nữa? Và Tổng thống Trump ngay từ đầu đã nhiều tháng đã kêu gọi về cái vấn đề này mà không có vote bằng giấy.
A quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were
có hơn 1% của những cái phiếu bầu này của năm 2016 là không có được đếm, giống như họ nhìn vô họ ôi I don't like it, tôi không thích, tôi không thích thì tôi bỏ đi.
You go and vote like they use.
Còn nếu mà quý vị đi bầu thì hãy đi và đi bầu.
Ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia.
Họ có một đống người làm về mailman, họ gửi ra khắp nơi. Và những cái mail này có thể là bị ăn cắp rồi bị dục xuống dưới sông rồi nói chung là có những cái sự sai trái rất là nhiều.
For the last decade or more, 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What we're saying is, they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time, by election day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because
you're wrong. You're wrong.
I want to continue with you on this, Vice President Biden.
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes.
Ông Joe nói rằng Tổng thống Donald Trump sợ đếm phiếu bầu là tại sợ thua. Tổng thống Donald Trump nói ông nói sai rồi, ông rất là sai rồi. Thật ra là tôi rất thích đếm những cái điều này.
It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you have 80 million ballots,
I have a final
Senate
question.
Xin lỗi, mình có 80 triệu người làm về cái giấy này và ông biết là sẽ không có làm được cái điều này.
Gentlemen, and the final question is, in 8 states, we can keep talking.
80 triệu cái phiếu bầu bằng giấy như vậy.
Currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until election day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks, until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest, and will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and
Tôi kêu
watch
gọi những
very
người ủng hộ
carefully.
tôi là đi đến những cái poll và hãy coi rất là cẩn thận.
In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They were called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing.
Có rất là những cái poll có nhiều người đứng đó để mà xem. Họ coi là mình vu cho cái gì. Như ví dụ ở Philadelphia thì tôi kêu gọi là những cái người mà ủng hộ tôi. Và tôi hy vọng rằng đây là một cái bầu cử công bằng.
I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what, from a common sense, I'll tell you what it means.
Tôi thấy là cả chục ngàn những cái bầu bị manipulate.
They're not equipped to, these people aren't equipped to handle it, number one. Number two, they cheat. They cheat. Hey,
có sự gian lận ở trong này. Họ đã lụm được những cái phiếu bầu ở trong cái thùng rác, và những cái phiếu bầu này là từ những military gửi về, và những cái phiếu bầu này là có tên là Trump ở trong đó. Nhưng mà đúng là gần đây có báo nói về cái vấn đề này luôn.
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until election day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since at the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots. That somehow it's a fraudulent process.
Ông cho đó là từ xưa nay cái điều mà bầu bằng giấy này là không có điều gian lận, mà tại sao bây giờ nói là điều gian lận?
Vice President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president not just for the Democrats, I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest ballot cut.
Ông cho nói nếu mà tôi là tổng thống của đảng Dân Chủ và đảng Cộng Hòa, nhưng mà còn Trump.
To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event. The next debate, sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates, will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until then, thank you and good night.
Hết rồi.
96 minutes after beginning, we have an answer to one of the questions.
96 phút.
It was yes. Fine.
Quý vị nghĩ sao? Quý vị nghĩ sao? Quý vị nghĩ sao? Hết rồi đó.
Trump coming out swinging. Former Vice President Joe Biden at times answering directly to the camera. Talking to the American people, multiple questions, multiple dust-ups.
Rồi, hết rồi. Em dịch như vậy là giỏi lắm rồi, xin cảm ơn. Trời ơi, khó lắm. Nói chung cũng cố gắng thôi, nhưng mà tại vì khi mà họ nói chuyện á, là họ nhảy vô nhảy ra, nói chung là cũng rất là khó, cho nên là nói chung Rachel cố gắng. Nhưng cảm ơn tất cả quý vị đã tune in, hy vọng rằng giúp được quý vị hiểu thêm được về cái buổi tranh luận này ha. Rồi bây giờ 10:40 rồi, xin cảm ơn tất cả quý vị rất nhiều. Bây giờ thì Rachel xin chào tạm biệt, rồi cái gì gặp lại quý vị ngày mai nha, trong những cái video tới. Bye. Good night, good night.